Who's the dumbest person you ever met? How did you know? My coworker was feeling lethargic, bloated, and had stopped menstruating. We told her she was probably pregnant. She decided on her own that she was anemic and started eating a dozen raw eggs every day. She had a full-term baby 5 months later. My friend wanted me to try whole wheat pasta. I explained that I'm allergic to wheat. She said to try it because it's not wheat, it's whole wheat. My former boss was worried that the island of Manhattan would sink with all the extra visitors for New Year's and the ball dropping. She thought islands float, and when she found out that wasn't true, she thought it was so funny that she told everyone the story. She was later fired for withholding a pay raise from someone on her team because he didn't accept her sexual advances. He had the texts to prove it. I remember a guy I knew in middle school who put money into a vending machine and then his item didn't come out. Then he put more money into the machine and 2 of the item he wanted came out. He then exclaimed, "All right. 2 for 1. I was working retail at the time, and this lady walks in and asks me to tell her when it is 10:15 a.m., she needs to catch a bus. We were slow, so I obliged. 10:15 a.m. rolls around and I tell her, so she drops her stuff and runs out to get the bus. 5 minutes later she comes back at scowling. And she then lectures me on how to tell time. How much is a quarter? 25 cents. So why would you tell me a 10:15 a.m. is 10:15 a.m.? It's 10:25 a.m. Tell her that her bus is late today, it will be in at $3 to 11. One time my now ex-girlfriend was watching Maury Povich, one of those paternity test episodes with the classic "you are not the father" moment, and she turns to me and says, "If we ever have a baby and I found out I'm not the mother, I'll kill you." Thankfully we didn't end up reproducing. I asked a temp at work to weigh a couple of lever arch files for postage. She came back and told me they were 65 kilograms. I asked if it were possible that it was 6.5 kilograms, but she insisted it wasn't. We argued about it for a good 5 minutes. It wasn't until I asked her how much she weighed, 59 kilograms, that it finally twigged that these 2 small folders couldn't possibly weigh more than her. Bold move asking her how much she weighs. Few years ago in Australia, Coke changed their bottle to be a bit narrower and taller to sew less plastic. Both bottles were 600 milliliters. Girl in my class at uni adamant that the change wasn't to reduce plastic but so they could put less Coke in to save money. I know they are both 600 milliliters, but the new one has less Coke in it. Dang it, late to the party. Anyway, I was a cook a few years ago, and this particular busy night we ran out of lobster mac and cheese. This one waitress could not understand how this was possible and just kept nagging and nagging in disbelief. I got annoyed to the point that I told her the reason for this was that there was a shortage of people with small enough hands to milk lobster's tiny nipples, hence a worldwide shortage of lobster milk to make that dish. I had to come clean with her when she started telling this to customers and they demanded to speak with the manager. I had a boss who told me that she never kept leftovers from a meal because that's how polio got started. All that pre-cooked food in the supermarket, it's all polio. A girl in my class in middle school genuinely thought people had landed on the sun. Her explanation for this belief was to insist that the moon and sun are made of the same stuff. Well, yeah. Protons, neutrons, and electrons. You can build a lot of wacky shit with that, though. Protons, neutrons, electrons, and morons apparently. Morons, the missing piece to the standard model, found at last. A friend of mine is a sweet guy but is overweight and balding and quite frankly, not very attractive in the face. Well, one day he lets us know that he has met a girl and she might be the one. He's in his late 20s for reference. Well, I've met some of the jewels he's hooked up with in the past, so I wasn't expecting too much. Finally meet this girl and she is drop dead gorgeous and has a body that is incredible. I talked to her for a while and she is super friendly and outgoing. I'm stoked for my boy. He found the best he's ever gonna find. Anyway, the night progresses and the new couple starts talking about their plans for an upcoming trip to New Mexico, and she starts telling us how excited she is because she has never gone to another country before. I laughed a bit and realized she was dead serious. My friend just looked at me and shook his head, and I knew that he knew. She was dumb as a fucking rock, but she was his dumb fucking rock. Fuyu, he helped her get her passport. A girl in my art class in high school thought there was just a part of the cow called meat. When we explained meat is the muscles, she freaked out and became vegetarian. A girl in my sophomore year of high school who thought there were 6 months in a year. She was really nice, but very surprised and confused when we tried to set her right. How did she get to high school without someone setting her straight? Well, you see, she got there in half the time. I know a guy who thinks the special tea he drinks negates the negative health effects of his pack-a-day smoking habit. My wife wanted to meet an old friend from school she hadn't seen for about 20 years. We went to dinner and he brought his wife, who he met 2 months ago, who was a male entertainer, and her 2 kids. He was white, she was black, and he spent the whole night trying to start crap with people for making racist comments about their relationship behind their back. They weren't. When we finally got into talking, he told me about 9 jump points that exist to get off the earth. I thought to myself, oh boy, a flat earther. I've never met a real one before. But no, that's not what he was talking about. That would have been so much better than what he was talking about. He said there are 9 jump points on Earth that are essentially wormholes to other planets, and that there is one in New York City that goes to Mars, and that the American government has already colonized Mars and is hiding it from the people. And he was dead serious. A girl in an AP US history class laughed at me when I was talking about driving to Alaska from Oregon. She insisted Alaska was an island because of how it is separated out on maps like this. I don't know if she was the dumbest person I met overall, but it was certainly the dumbest thing someone insisted they were right about. A guy at a job site said this to me in all seriousness, I am quoting, "If Hitler had put all the Jews on the Titanic, he could have saved himself a lot of trouble." I felt like I had a stroke. Also, saved himself a load of trouble is a scary mundane way to describe genocide. My first ever girlfriend thought you had to study for an STD test. She was really pretty. Girl in my class asked the professor if other countries have moons, too. My best friend asked me this when I moved to Europe. She asked if I could see the moon there, or if it only existed for the USA. When I moved from Europe to the US, I was asked, do you guys have television? This was in 2005. Edit. The rest of the conversation went no, the castles don't have electricity to plug a TV into. I thought she was kidding, so I was joking back. She replied, oh. Yeah, that makes sense. I had a guy at work tell me that Benjamin Franklin was the 100th president because he's on the $100 bill. I mean, we're only on the 45th. So he could be right one day. In another 200 years a kid may well be named Ben Franklin unironically. She thought I was trying to trick her into believing that Adolf Hitler was real. But, like, were you? Oh hell yeah, I not only tried but also succeeded in the end. But I couldn't trick her into believing the Holocaust. She said there was no way. Darn it. On the bright side, she probably votes now, so that's good. I went to school with a girl that legitimately thought 9/11 was done by German Nazis. Pretty sure that was Nina 11. I remember proofreading a paper for a freshman my roommate had the hots for. It was on Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, but somehow this freshman didn't catch that it was satire. The opening lines of the paper are burned into my memory. Eating children would not be a good thing to do. In fact, we could say it would be bad. Well, we could say that, but would it be true? My sister-in-law is an anti-vaxxer and believes her kid's cerebral palsy was caused by vaccines. Despite the kid being born with 1/4 of her brain physically missing, that girl is lucky. She could have been born missing her whole brain like her mother. I live in southern Spain. I once met a girl from the US who was here on some kind of exchange program. When I asked her how did she like Spain so far, she said, I'm loving it. I just don't know why the plane took so long to get here. I mean, we are just a bit below Mexico. I don't know, hey, the flight was so long. Then I told her that we were in Europe. And she didn't believe me. Her reply was, Europe? It can't be. Everyone speaks Spanish, so we must be somewhere near Mexico for sure. She was in uni. I still don't know how or why. My ex-sister-in-law is hands down the dumbest person I've ever encountered. There's literally a plethora of fucking insanely stupid things she said over the years, but I'll use the one that almost made me slap the taste out of her mouth. I had my first son back in 2001, and while I was pregnant she asked me if I was going to breastfeed. To which I replied that I was. She then asked even if it's a girl? And I said of course. She then proceeded to tell me that it's perfectly fine to breastfeed boys, but doing so with girls is creepy and could make the child a lesbian. Because they get the feel of a breast and will remember it and want that sexually. To say that I was stunned by her thought process is an understatement. I asked her what she thought people did before formula was invented and she said cow's milk. And before bottles were invented it was a rag soaked in cow's milk. Side note, she had 3 daughters and wouldn't allow her husband to change their diapers or bathe them. Someone asked me if Japanese was a real language. In high school. Twice. Nah, it was just made up by really dedicated weebs. Half of my science class thought that the International Space Station was just some building on the ground. Ah yes, the International Land Station. They referred to a spork as the devil's utensil and said it was trying to blur gender lines in society by combining the feminine spoon and the masculine fork. In French both fork and spoon are feminine nouns. I guess the spork would be the fruit of their unholy lesbian union.